from Colombia. And I wonder if he knows it. I bet you Zaina does. She starts to pick up the pace again now as the mountain starts to level out. A nice little glance to the right here. He will see the finish here, Enrico Zaina. And he's going to make sure he gets into the entry first. Nelson Rodriguez itching to get round, you know, and going to have a go through on the inside. And the sprint is on now as they start to go for the line. This is a very good effort by Rodriguez. It wasn't enough because they came off that bend, and I'm sure Zaina knew about that one. He got the sprint in third place there. Cipollini comes over the line. This is the group now contesting fifth. Ugrumov gets that. Furlan came in just between the two there. But there is the rider who got his stage win in the Tour of Italy. Another first for him as well. Enrico Zaina taking the victory for Carrera. This is how he did it. And Rodriguez caught off guard there. He came round the corner. There was the finish, and it was all too late for him. But it certainly wasn't for Enrico Zaina, who gives Carrera the victory today. The champagne and the two beautiful women in yellow. And this is the stage result, but more importantly now, Ugrumov is up to second, but 3 minutes 8 seconds back, and Berzin is into third place overall. Now, stage 12, a flattish day going from Borgo Monzano to Cento of 201 kilometres. This did prove to be a lesson of how not to sprint. Mario Cipollini, keep an eye on him. He's in the blue jersey down at the head of the peloton. The finishing line approached. The field was all together. Cipollini would win the stage, but he would be disqualified. And if you watch closely, you'll see why. As they all swung round into the home straight, Jan Zurada was the rider on the far left of the screen. Cipollini was in fact in a bad position. He was trapped in the centre of the field. As we look at the shot here, he was already clear and sprinting seemingly to his third stage victory in this year's Giro d'Italia. Certainly he was on his own, and by this time he was about to win his third stage. Jan Zurada on the right would take second, and Giovanni Lombardi would get third. So everybody went off to the podium and the celebrations began. But then the referees took another look at the photo finish, and as a result of that, they decided to disqualify Cipollini. This is why. The blue jersey of Cipollini is fifth in line. On his right there is Manzoni. He clearly pushes him out of the way to make room for a clear approach to the finish. Now, it did appear to me that was a very hard decision by the race referees, because I don't think it made very much difference to the actual race result. Victory was given, in fact, to second-place finisher Jan Zurada. Lombardi was third, Schitera was fourth, Manzoni was fifth. Pieve di Cento to Rovereto, 218 kilometres, and the mountains are getting closer now, and this a very tough stage indeed. Just one climb, though, coming towards the end. It's the climb of San Valentino. And just watch this now as we replay what happened earlier in the stage. A little bit of a wheelie being done by a Gavis rider and resulting in that rather horrendous crash, but thankfully nobody injured. And just take a look at it again. Watch just behind the AKI rider, as a Gavis rider seems to catch his foot, and down he goes. And a very nasty fall indeed. And I can think of an easier way to pick grapes. And the amazement too of the riders at the front as they look over. But the race continuing now, and on the climb of San Valentino, the only king of the mountains counter. Piccoli still the leader, by the way, in this competition, as he has been for much of the Giro this year, and 45 kilometres remaining. Well, there's been a number of attacks now, but nothing has got clear yet, except this small group is now beginning to make some progress. It was originally 13 riders. It's thinned down a little bit now. And in this breakaway group, among others, is Oliveira Rincon and Pascal Richard, the Swiss rider, and this is the chase now. And Berzin again playing fully now his part in this race. The terrible twins, I've called them, and there they are again. Ugrumov and Berzin riding almost side by side, and alongside them both is the pink jersey of this year's race, seemingly invincible. And Piccoli is at the head of the race here. The leader in the King of the Mountains, scoring well again. And Dmitry Konyshev, the rider, briefly seen at the back of the group there. So Piccoli is really shot to the fore in this year's race. and he's talking here across to the other rider, who is Vyacheslav Bobrik. In fact, he was obviously asking him for a drink. Bobrik is Russian, but now he resides, having come here to Italy with Evgeni Berzin, former both Russian national squad riders. He now speaks fluent Italian. And still, Rominger looking rather contented with the way this race is going. We're on the edge of the Dolomites, and tomorrow we'll be in the thick of them, and perhaps he's thinking more of that as we approach the small finishing circuit here with 17 kilometres remaining. And the breakaway don't look like being caught at all now. They're hanging on to quite a nice little lead here over the main field. They're quite a long way ahead now, over 6 minutes. But the group containing Berzin and Rominger is round about a minute 30, and here they are. And Patrick Jonker, the Australian rider, his first season for him on the Spanish Once team, enjoying a little bit of the action. But this is now Jonker's teammate here, and this is Olivier Rincon. He's on his second season with the Once team, and alongside him is Pascal Richard. And Richard having a very, very good season. In fact, he's won 4 races already this year. And he was the king of the mountains indeed in the Giro d'Italia 1 year ago. Now they've got clear on the last climb of the Col de Patoni, and the gap is still not over significant. About, well, there it is, a minute and 40 seconds on the group containing Tony Rominger. Rincon doing a lot of the work here, and just 2 days ago his wife gave birth to their child, and so he's got something to celebrate. And the Once team have had a quiet race so far. Eric Breukink in the early moves has dropped away significantly, and Rincon now putting that to rights with an attack here, a very narrow approach up towards the top of the Patoni. 208 kilometres covered at this point, just 10 kilometres from the finish, and that's confirmed on the right of the screen there. And still, it's the Gaywiz boys who keep the pressure on, and Rominger beginning to enjoy their presence, I think, because he's using them a little bit now. Minute 48 to the 2 leaders. A very gentle left-hand turn here, and it looked like a trip into space if he didn't make it too tightly around that corner. These roads are so difficult to really get a chase going in because they are so narrow and twisty. Back down below, and 1 kilometre to go now. Well, Rincon and Richard, surely Pascal Richard is the sprinter, former champion of his country, Switzerland, former stage winner of the Tour de France and the Tour of Italy. And this is a late chase. It looked like it was the Gaywiz rider Bobrik who's again slipped off the front. And Bobrik trying to get on terms, and he's got them in his sights. Now, if they mess about, he'll have them. And in fact, look at this. Richard has seen him coming, and he's going to gamble. Richard is waiting as late as possible, and Rincon is going to take him on in this war of nerves. And just look at the speed now. The advancing Vyacheslav Bobrik. He's closing in so quickly. Stages have been won like this, and Richard isn't showing any signs of panic. Richard is still waiting for Rincon to make the move. Rincon goes now. Bobrik ever so close, and he can't quite get on as Richard easily takes the lead and kicks away. So Pascal Richard takes this stage of the Giro d'Italia, followed over the line by Olivier Rincon, and this is Guerini who comes across the line in 4th place. And Piccoli, the king of the mountains, he'll keep his green jersey for another day. He is finishing almost 50 seconds down in 5th place. This is the sprint for the best of the rest, and it looks as though David Rebellin is about to take on Casagrande and get him on the line indeed. And also involved in that sprint too was Jens Heppner. But there's the happy smiles of Pascal Richard, back on the winner's podium for him, as he was so many times in the Giro a year ago. And this is how he did it, and what a cool nerve he had too. He knew that Bobrik was coming up, and he didn't panic. He waited and went, and he won. And with the main field and all the favourites in at 1 minute 22, there was no real change overall. Rominger, Ugrumov, Berzin, Casagrande the order. And that might well change now, because we're on to stage 14 at 240 kilometres. This, the longest stage of this year's Giro, and it is a brute of a course as well. The riders are in the Dolomites now, and they finish on top of the Val Senalis. So the riders have left Trento, and they've gone right up to the snow line here. This breakaway going clear on the Passo di Penis, and containing in it number 7 at the back of the group is Alberto Volpi. But again, this early breakaway containing no riders who can offer a threat to Tony Rominger. They're gambling on a long break here, perhaps to pull back a little bit of time. Tomar Davy is also here for the Banesto team. The Banesto, without their leader, Miguel Indurain, have had a very, very quiet race indeed. No one to really work for. And this is a small group that has got clear trying to join them. It's being led by Maurizio Fondriest. Enrico Zainer has got back to the front, our hero of a couple of days ago. And the rider in blue is the ever consistent and, I must say, ever improving Laurent Madouas. And this is now on the climb of the 2,100 meters pass, the pass of the Monte Giovo. It was the previous climb when the breakaway got clear of 6, and it looks as though Fondriest is determined enough now to try and get up to those 6 leaders. So a stage win under his belt, Maurizio Fondriest, but he's dropped far and away from the overall challenge of a high GC finish here. Again, yesterday he lost 8 minutes on the leaders, but it seems he wants to do something today. This is Zainer, and this is the lead group here. And number 104 at the front there is Hernan Buenajora, very, very consistent Colombian rider on the Kelme team. Nearly at the top now, the Paso de Monte Giovo. And the other rider from Kelme seems to go everywhere that Buenajora goes in the mountains, and that's Lordolino Cubino. Nelson Rodriguez bringing the riders up and under the banner. And they've stayed more or less together, 5 of them surviving as they go over the top, and Zainer on the back of them now as well. Just about below the snow line. So often the Giro d'Italia tangles itself up with the end of the winter snows, and as you can see there, the roads are wet as the snow continues to melt. 3 minutes 15 back to the main group, and containing Tony Rominger, Ugrumov, Berzin, and 1 or 2 riders not being content with just newspapers for the rather chilly descent. I noticed 1 or 2 wearing their overcoats. As they now make their way back down the mountain shortly, and then they head on towards the finish at Valsenales. Well, I think this is a very wise way to race the stage here. 240 kilometers, a long way, of course, in the mountains, and Rominger is allowing his rivals, if they want, to attack him. He has never put a foot wrong so far. His team also have worked extremely well to keep him right in a position from which to launch any possible required counter-attack. And talking of counter-attacks now, here's our little group together, and that's Zainer now joining the leaders. This is Laurent Madouas and Fondriest. They're still in between, the group now being headed again by Mapei. A little bit lower down, and the sun is out, you can see from the shadows of the riders. And there's the small group coming up. A small gap too, 11 seconds to these 2 chasers. They're going to be on very, very shortly now. There's been no sign of worry here though from the Mapei. Oh, and I think my shoulders might ache just a little bit after a course like this today. And that is Arsenio Gonzalez just stretching his shoulder muscles there. He knows there's a lot of work still to come. The gap though is not significant, 2 minutes 15 seconds. We still have the long climb up to the finish, and I'm quite sure it's not quite the Alpe d'Huez of the Giro d'Italia, but it is a hard climb, and I would think that Tony Rominger is going to wait until then. These riders in the lead are certainly not out of reach at the moment, because there's 30 miles rather, more or less, still to go to the finish. 45 kilometers. Well, not only has this been the longest stage of the race today of 240 kilometers, but the majority of it has been into a very strong headwind, and that's not a smile on the face of Laurent Madouas, it is in fact a grimace. Rider going through here and just keeping the tempo steady. Menegotto from the ZG team. Little Nelson Rodriguez. And I don't think that Madouas is going to get too much shelter on his wheel. Well, it's been a long and bitter chase. All of the gaps are coming down, but Fondriest is nearly on, and he's bringing with him Alberto Volpi. Volpi is coming back from that lead group, in fact, and there they are. And this indeed is the chase behind. So it looks as though on the final climb, as we head up towards the top of Valsenalis, that the whole field could come together here, and that would put Tony Rominger back in with a possibility of yet another stage victory. Frattini again trying to play an active part in this year's Giro, carrying all the confidence of a man who's won a World Cup Classic this year. But the way he was riding there, it was more for his gay whiz partners, Berzin and Ugrumov. Reformation at the front, Rodriguez, Buenahora, Zaina, Madouas, they're the riders up front. The face of Tony Rominger looking a little bit concerned, but he needn't. The gap is still down, 20 seconds to the chase group, 1:22 between Rominger and the very front group, but just over a minute to the handful of riders in front. And a minute on a climb of this stature is not very much. And it looks as though Cubino is having a bit of trouble. That was Cubino passing through. This is Madouas. Buenahora is the other rider in Kelme colours, 1:04. And Maurizio Fondriest has given up. He's allowing the group to come to him. Volpi too. Although Volpi won't be too worried about this. He's a great climber, Volpi. He's had a couple of very good seconds in the Alps in the Tour de France. And John Unzaga leading the race for Mapei at the moment. Now, Cameron Madouas, who always tries in the mountains, can he just do something today and take out the win? Little Rodriguez, who was in at the Kill a couple of days ago and now is there again, seemingly, as Enrico Zaina, another man that's featured well, also trying again for Carrera. Looking at Zaina there, wouldn't it have been nice to see Marco Pantani in the thick of the action? The rider unable to start this Giro because of an accident involving an autocar just before the race began. So we wish him well and hope he gets back to form for the Tour de France. Well, it's hardly the big Grand Peloton of the Giro d'Italia, but it does contain all of the rivals down there, and they're coming in slowly but surely, and surprisingly, Rodriguez here is slipping away, leaving just a couple of men up front. Well, Zaina is one of them. Madouas has gone from our view, so the other one must be Buenahora. And there he is. So the Colombian climber and Enrico Zaina, who is having a really very, very good season indeed, that man. He's really matured this year. He was 5th in the Grand Prix of Frankfurt. And now he's in with a chance of a stage win here again. Making all of the running. Buenahora follows him, but the group is coming up behind at a relentless rhythm. There they are. Tony Rominger in pink, always on his shoulder. Last year's winner of the Giro, Evgeni Berzin, they've got them. So the last of the breakaways are back in this very select front group now. There's still plenty of time on the climb, and another attack immediately. Buenahora is caught. This looks like Gonzalez is going. Another Kelme rider. He's leaving himself something like 18, 19 kilometres to the top of this mountain, because it is, believe it or not, a 23-kilometre climb. And he's got the little gap, and I don't think there'll be too many riders ready to take up the chase immediately after a long effort to bring back the rest of that breakaway. 9 kilometres to go now, and the legs are beginning to ache and the shoulders are beginning to roll. Well, this is Chepi Gonzalez from the Kelme team, and to me he's lost an awful lot of his rhythm in these last couple of kilometres. It's still a long way. The gap counting on the top of the picture there, and it's just round about half a minute. No change in this group composition at all. Still all of the men who matter are here. Rominger, Ugrumov, Berzin, Casagrande, Cipollini. They're the top 5 overall in this year's Giro d'Italia, and they're still locked together, riding the mountain in the same bunch. Everybody tempting to see just how strong Rominger is, if they need reminding, because he is so obviously strong this year. He has come here with tremendous form. Continuing his climb, Olivier Rincon riding on his wheel in the yellow jersey of the Once team, and he's in a bit of a gay whiz sandwich at the moment, with Evgeni Berzin at the back and Piotr Ugrumov at the front. Still trying to bring back the cheeky attack by Gonzalez. The flotilla of motorcycles ahead indicating that they're not very far away from him either. But this is a group which is getting clear from the rest of the field now. Once again, the top men are projecting themselves Francisco Casagrande seemingly having a little bit of difficulty following the big wheels in the mountains. And there is the rider who broke away, Gonzalez, and he's now being brought back to heel. A good look over his shoulder, he sees the maglia rosa of Tony Rominger, again at the head of the race where the leader should always be. And Rincon has gone. Rincon has done the classic move, just in fact as Gonzalez did. Rincon has waited for the capture and jumped clear. He's absolutely flown away from this gap. And don't forget, he was second yesterday. He was annoyed about that because he was hoping to celebrate the birth of his new child, which is now 3 days old, by the way. And he's now trying to put amends and get the victory today. Berzin looking across, in fact looking over the shoulder of Rominger, because Berzin anxious to put time too into Casagrande and Cipollini. So too Ugrumov. Ugrumov and Berzin locked together, fighting at the moment for second place overall in this year's race. And Rominger need do nothing but follow these wheels. These are the men who have to attack him, who have to get the time. He has the time. He leads Ugrumov at the moment by a lot more than 3 minutes. 3 minutes and 8 seconds, in fact. 3:16 over Berzin and 3 minutes 20 over Casagrande. Cipollini, who is fifth overall, is over 5 minutes behind. And Zainer, who has ridden again so well today and is currently in sixth place overall, well, he's 6 minutes and 24 seconds down. But you've got to hand it to the two boys from Gay Wiz. They are pushing the pace at every opportunity. They haven't conceded this year's race at all yet. And this is Casagrande here. He's trying to ride himself back into the race. He's lost a little bit of time, but he may well get back before the top. It's a long climb and things happen to the body on long climbs. 1 minute you're going well, the next minute you can feel very, very rough indeed. Well, so far, Tony Rominger hasn't felt rough at all. 3 stage wins, 2 in the time trial, and a mountain top finish as well. Well, sort of mountain top, hilltop really. But this is certainly a mountain top finish. And Oliveira Rincon has flown. He's gaining time too, and if he gains good time, he could be a man that will cause concerns, especially to the two riders in blue. Rincon started the day in 11th place, 7 minutes and 56 seconds behind the leader, but don't forget he's only 4 minutes behind the two riders in the blue jerseys, and that is why they're being forced now to set the pace in the chase. Rominger knows it, and that's why he's using them. And in fact, it looks to me as though they've got Berzin in a little bit of trouble here now. Evgeni Berzin could be conceding a little bit of time to his teammate Ugrumov. He will not be happy with that. Ugrumov has openly said rather unkind things about Berzin, like he is not a man you would want to know. Well, perhaps that's why he's leaving him. So Ugrumov now trying to work with Tony Rominger, and legally he can do it. If Berzin can't keep up, then drop him, and they're getting closer and closer to Oliveira Rincon. And this again is a tremendous show of strength now, because Rominger is working with Ugrumov and Rincon is far from safe. In fact, I think they're going to come up right behind the Colombian. By the end of the next kilometre or so, they're going to have him. And Ugrumov is sensing it, because look at the rhythm he's got there, and Berzin somehow has found the strength to come back. Now the hill did level a little bit, and in fact Berzin has taken full advantage of that. And this is the chase behind with Claudio Cipollini. Heinz Imbuden is the rider in the red jersey. And the other rider who is also in on the move there, I think, was Casagrande. And these are the three riders now at 5 kilometres to go, chasing the leader, Oliveira Rincon. You can just see him in the distance. And the group behind them, the man in the middle isn't in fact Casagrande, it is Georg Tochnig, the Austrian rider on the Polti squad. So Casagrande, probably the man among the leaders who's in the most trouble today, because the top 3 riders are right here and still marking one another. And I think they're all rivals, even though 2 are on the same team. Berzin setting the pace, Ugrumov matching him wheel for wheel, Rominger again content to follow, and why shouldn't he? Well, it looks as though Rincon has survived here. He was going to be caught, I thought, but he started to ride away again now, because the hill has started once more to go up. And there's probably the most respected manager in the world of professional cycling, Manolo Saez, who's now shouting at Rincon and telling him you can win this and make up for the second place yesterday. The arrival here of the other 3, Cipollini, Imbuden on the right, and Georg Tochnig. So now we have 6 riders chasing here now. Ugrumov checking out who just came up, and the first man he saw was Claudio. So the devil is here as well. Heinz Imbeden, former champion of Switzerland, goes straight to the front. They're all gathering their strength behind this rider who's looking very, very tired. And this is the hapless Casagrande, who is losing time today. Let's hope he doesn't lose too much. He started the stage 4th overall. Don't forget, he's been as high as 2nd. And now he's having to survive, without doubt, his most difficult day of this year's tour. Also the longest too, don't forget, 240 kilometres. And nobody willing to set the pace that might finish off the lead of Rincon. And Rincon heading up towards the finish. He's about 900 metres from the line. And this is the chase group. This is Georg Tocznik who's gone clear here. So Tocznik has got clear. He slipped them somewhere. He's gone under the banner. The other 5 are right there, but they're not going to stop it. Rincon has now got his victory. Olivier Rincon, the 27-year-old Colombian rider, gets the most memorable stage of the race, the longest indeed. He gets the victory, 7.5 hours in the saddle today. Tocznik continues to show us what a great rider for the future he really is. Despite that crash a few days ago, he's now going to take 2nd place as the sprint starts behind. It's Rominger who starts the sprint. So Tocznik gets 2nd place. He'll be just over a minute behind. Rominger coming clear, claiming a few seconds as well in the sprint. Ugrumov tries to limit them, but he's hanging on. He's still going to lose 1 or 2, and every second counts. Rominger has stolen the march again. And the man missing is Berzin, because this is Claudio Chiappucci and Berzin with him. So Claudio Chiappucci, Berzin, Imbeden in that order over the line. And they lost a few more seconds to Rominger. This rider, though, Rincon, has now moved himself up into the top 6 places overall. All smiles for Olivier Rincon. In the Once team have a good stage victory there, and here's another view of it as well. It's not too often we see Rincon win a stage, but when he does it in fine style, and it's always up a mountain. And our 2 Senorinas feeling the chill air on top of the mountain today as they welcome the stage winner, Olivier Rincon. And there's the result. 1:18 was the final gap over Tocznik. Rominger, though, gaining time yet again over Ugrumov and Berzin. And there it all confirms. Ugrumov now 3:14 back. Berzin 3:29. Casagrande hung on for 4th. So to the 15th stage, 185 kilometres, not anywhere like the length of yesterday. The riders now heading off from Valsenales into Switzerland, where they cross the border after around 60 kilometres of riding. It's hills all the way. And you know, when you have a short stage, you so often have a very difficult one. Well, from the beauty of Italy to the stunning contrast of the beauty of Switzerland. And here's where we are on the Passo del Fuan. 103 kilometres to go. The first serious climb of the day, and a breakaway of some 17 riders have got clear. The King of the Mountains, who is proving to be a very solid King of the Mountains leader, Mariano Piccoli, going over the top first. More points in the bag. He's looking certain now of keeping that jersey all the way to Milan. And he's very confident indeed. He's made a good move here to get into a breakaway group. And temporarily at least they've split up at the front of the field. And they've all regrouped. This is the composition of the breakaway. Piccoli is the most noted rider in it. Buena Hora is back here again, and Furlan and Bobrick. And among the other riders, Pavel Tonkov, another Russian rider, and the 2 stage winners, Richard and Sorensen. And this is now the top of the Overspin Pass, and again a sprint, and again it is the King of the Mountain showing he can sprint as well as he takes on Guarini and takes the points. So he's continuing to get full points today, and this almost certain to confirm him as the winner of the King of the Mountains. The main field going over the top here, 2 minutes and 11 seconds back. And the group reforming at the front, these riders who have set the trend all day. And the pace has been very, very quick indeed. This is Berzin, and Berzin looks to me as though he's in open space here. He's trying to go clear. We've just started the climb of the Fuela Pass. The gap is down to 2 minutes, and Berzin is now trying to go by himself. Well, the one rider we haven't seen but we know is in trouble is Francisco Casagrande. He has got a problem, and he's been dropped by this league group today, as last year's champion of the Giro presses on and is going clear now. For the last 2 days, Bombini, the manager of the Gawies team, has been saying that his two riders will continue to attack Rominger, and I wonder if we're seeing the start of it right now. And in fact, we've just seen there the two Gawies riders coming together, because numbers 1 and number 2, Berzin and Bobrick, are now together, and they're picking the way through the remnants of the breakaway. Number 102 being caught up there is Garcia, and number 128, that is Rolf Sorensen. Now this is an amazing turnabout. We saw the quick glimpse of the face of Tony Rominger for the first time, looking a little bit concerned here. Bobrick too looks as though he's in trouble. He's falling back, but he's seen his team leader come to the front, and he's going to go again. Now he's got there, he wants to split this up. This has been a superb piece of riding by Berzin to get across to this group. There is the third group on the road now, and this is Bobrick coming back to that group. So he's now going to have to try and find the strength to get in with Tony Rominger. But the man who is causing trouble now, high up in the Dolomites, is Evgeni Berzin. And these are the riders who've been having the race themselves. They're actually ahead on the road now, Guerini and Piccoli. But that's not the concern of either Berzin or Rominger. They've got other fish to fry today. Over the top of the Thuela Pass, the gap around about 2 minutes, more or less. And the man shaking his fist would like them to wait for him here is Farfan. Slowly but surely, a little bit of regrouping going on. Pascal Richard sitting there at the back. But this is a significant move now, and the first time that we've seen Rominger actually release his grip, and I don't think he will have done it voluntary. Berzin's made an extremely good move here, but you've got to have the legs to do a move like that. Going across on the climb, joining the leaders that have been in front for a long, long while today. Now he's got some strong people to help him here. Pavel Tonkov, for example. The Refin rider who's setting the pace down there, Heinz Imbuden. 50 kilometres from the finish. And the group reforming, and that was Berzin right at the head of them. But this, don't forget, is not the group. This is the chase group, all forming around him. Now Berzin's gone back here for further instructions after the first attack has only partly succeeded. And these are the two leaders. Piccoli is beginning to show himself as a good bike rider. He's never won a race, by the way, since he turned professional back in 1993. But he's enjoying his day out in the Giro today. There's one of the dreaded tunnels we can't go through, we'd lose our pictures. But in fact, they are the tunnels the riders fear most. They're totally unlit, and when you go into those tunnels with your sunglasses on, and then I should imagine you're frightened to death. Furlan launching an attack again. The Gawies putting in one more move. Berzin waiting just as long as he can here. The Mapei riders are now around him. And this looks like Nelson Rodriguez, the Colombians and the Spanish riders coming into their own in the Dolomites. Buena Hora and Frattini is the Gawies rider. Well, if you try and you win, that's one thing, but it's nice to see at least Gawies riders are trying to take on Tony Rominger, who has appeared to be such a solid leader. Now we're looking at Frattini here. Francesco Frattini. Rominger still has some teammates able to pull that race along, while the Gawies just about throwing everything they can at him today. They are launching one attack after another. Over the top and down the other side once more. And Francesco Frattini is trying to draw the sting once more of the Mapei riders. There's an uphill finish today in Lenzerheide, which, don't forget, is in Switzerland, which is where we are right now. The riders crossing the borders today at something like 40 miles covered. And the Swiss-style chalets, and the first people in Switzerland here to witness those two. We'll see Piccoli and Guerini. Ugrumov again digging deep and keeping the rhythm high. And Rincon back in the frame as well. Rincon now a contender for a high overall finish, so he won't be allowed too much leeway to get clear, again like he did the last 2 days. And Berzin still feeling extremely frisky, but it looks as though Rominger is now feeling he's getting control of this situation. Berzin putting down yet another attack since he got swept up, and Rominger seemingly pedaling again that low gear, sits right back on the saddle and just tries to conserve energy while control the breakaways. But the breakaways are going to continue. Ugrumov comes, Rominger's paying attention. Ugrumov digs very, very deep indeed, and so too does Tony Rominger. This is wonderful racing. Although I doubt whether Rominger might agree. Rominger gets onto the back wheel now of Ugrumov. Rincon comes up, so too does Berzin. The other rider here is Claudio Chiappucci, and also Heinz Imbuden in that red Refin jersey. And I think that's about it. Something like 6 riders now in this front group. Gawies again have the vast majority with their 2 top men here. And Rominger is now on his own. All of the Mapei boys have fallen out of it. And what a tough tour they are having, trying to nurse their leader. Rominger, though, has always got that nice feeling of having the big time advantage over the rest. He can afford, if he cracks, just to hang on and not lose too much. He's over 3 minutes in the lead. Pressure eased off slightly again. These are the 6 riders heading up towards the finish. Rincon in yellow, Imbuden in red. Heinz Imbuden having a very good last few days in this race. And in fact, having said that, here he goes now, Imbuden having a little go. Rapidly being joined at the back. Claudio Chiappucci comes up at a gallop. But very often a habit of Claudio to look over his shoulder when he attacks. I don't know whether it's just to have a smile at the rest while they chase him, or whether to see exactly where they are. But the 2 riders, while we've watched what has certainly been the best part of the race, the counter-attacks behind, these 2 riders are staying well clear. They're still about 1.5 minutes clear, as Piccoli is going to finish off a marvellous day out here and take his first ever victory in his professional career in 2 years. He gets the victory, consolidates his lead in the King of the Mountains over Guarini. Frattini went away, they never counted his move, and that was on the cards too. He wasn't the marked man. He comes home in 3rd place and takes it. 1:23 was the gap. Now this is the sprint now. Tocznik is leading it out. So Georg Tocznik also had a great time in the Dolomites, which are now coming to an end as he sprints home in Switzerland. No, he doesn't, because gone over the top of him now is Francois Simon, and Simon ahead of Zehner, Tocznik, Imbuden on the line. So they got up in the very late closing kilometres of the climb, and dropping away from the front rank was Chiappucci and Rincon. But it all changed. The man who's in green as the King of the Mountains and the stage winner is now Mariano Piccoli. He's never been on the podium before. As a winner, that is, and let's just have a quick look at the result. There it is, and significantly, the other boys coming in 2 minutes and 6 seconds back. And the rider's not too far away from Milan now as we move on to the 16th stage, 224 kilometres. Just the one big climb early on, the Giulia Pass. Then we go downhill to Treviglio, and that is the home, by the way, of the Bianchi bicycle, and the race, in fact, finishing outside the bicycle factory. So, no real challenge downhill. The Dolomites are now behind the riders. The overall situation, Rominger leading by 3 minutes and 14 seconds. Berzin is 3rd, and Chiappucci is now in 4th position. He's ridden a very solid race this year, Claudio Chiappucci, but he's found 3 rather tough men ahead of him. And again, the Mercatoni Uno riders are at the head of affairs, but not for Mario Cipollini this time, indeed for their other sprinter, Martinello, because Cipollini abandoned the tour before the mountains begun. So the sprint coming up now towards the end, and we've got Giovanni Lombardi, who's trying to start the sprint as well, and the pink jersey is also in there, the points leaders jersey, Jan Zverada. This is going to be quite a tussle here as they come down towards the sprint. Giovanni Lombardi is the rider who's got himself up into 2nd place. He was the points champion, by the way, in the 1992 Olympic Games. And now he's following the wheel of the other team sprinter. Fidanza's moved out. There's a fend off there by Manzoni, and then there was a counter-attack on a hook from Lombardi. I would think that both of those riders will be disqualified, but Lombardi has gone across the line first. Now watch this first of all, as the blue meets the yellow, and the arm comes out there from Manzoni and pushes Lombardi away. Then Manzoni begins the sprint again and heads towards the barriers, and this is where Lombardi takes him into the barriers and leans on him. So I would think that Lombardi, had he not retaliated, would have kept that stage victory, but instead it's going to go to Citero, who's coming through nearest the camera. The other 2 riders have been declassed. So another controversial sprint finish, and as Fidanza swings away, there's the hand clearly seen there from Mariano Manzoni as he tries to hold off Giovanni Lombardi, and then Lombardi, taking offence to that, decides to go and have a go at him as he pushes him towards the barriers, then straightens up for the finish. And if he hadn't have made that move, then I think Giovanni Lombardi would have been given the result. Instead, it's gone to the rider on the right, Giuseppe Citerio. The overall leader is Tony Rominger, while the result is not so good for the Champagne. Lombardi has been declassed, and so too has Manzoni in third. So Citerio the winner, Pagnin is up into second. 6 stages left to go, and the last and most important final time trial, 43 kilometres this. It's a mountain time trial. The rider's going from Cinate to Selvigno Aviatico, and it goes up to 962 metres. Evgeni Berzin last year was in pink. This year he's still trying to work out how he can improve on his current third place overall. He's 3 minutes and 29 seconds behind Tony Rominger, but more importantly, of course, he is only 15 seconds behind his teammate Piotr Ugrumov, and that, I'm sure, is uppermost in his mind. And starting with a reasonable steady speed here, because this is a very tough finish to the time trial sections of this year's Giro d'Italia, especially at the end. Tony Rominger, who has opted, by the way, to have 26-inch wheels fitted to his bike. Now, the last time he did that was in the Tour de France almost a year ago. And this is Piotr Ugrumov, who is currently lying second overall in the race, 3 minutes and 14 seconds down. He has finished previously second overall. That was to the great Miguel Indurain. So Rominger is setting the trend, and indeed is setting the time. Zenin Jaskula has gone the fastest through this check, and you can see now that Evgeni Berzin is living up to his reputation. He's going to challenge Jaskula, and in fact he's gone through with the new best time, almost 15 seconds quicker. Now, Tony Rominger hasn't reached that point yet, of course. He's riding some 6 minutes behind on the road, and Ugrumov is in front of him. Ugrumov now. Jaskula is already on the board, which means that Ugrumov is now behind Berzin, and behind by almost 10 seconds. If he continues to lose at that rate, then he will slip out of second place overall in this year's event, and Berzin will be back up there. So the battle between the two Gabriel's boys continues, and I don't think Tony Rominger minds a bit. This rider well settled into his pace now. Still to come to the first check. Onto the climb. Evgeni Berzin still looking very, very strong indeed. Now let's see how Rominger compares to Berzin. Rominger the best by almost more than half a minute, in fact. 33 seconds now. So Tony Rominger is out today to increase his lead even more in this year's race. And so far his average speed is 25 miles an hour despite the climbs. They've gone over the top of the Col de Gallo, and he really is riding well. Berzin now, though, is digging deep, and I think he's being pulled by the fact he wants to get ahead of Piotr Ugrumov. He knows he's got to do it today, because time gained today, he will try not to lose in what few stages remain, and no real big challenges either. He knows it, and Ugrumov knows it. And here now, Berzin comes up to the finish, and he's going to put the best time on the board. Casagrande may have lost his high overall finish in this race, but even so, he's taken over the podium from Jaskula at the moment with the best time, 1:9:10.7. Berzin's going to reshape that as he crosses the line very, very shortly. He'll be around 1 hour, 7 minutes and 40 seconds when he comes up to the line. That's a great time, 1:32 better than Casagrande, and that will be a real time to beat now. So we've just got two riders to finish, and they're both out on the course, and this is the man who's making his steady ascension up towards the top of the finishing line, and Ugrumov is almost there. Now Ugrumov tied on time almost to the same 1/10 of a second in the last time trial. I think it's going to be a little bit different now. He started out the day second overall. He's going to lose that second place because Casagrande is the time on the board now. He's behind Berzin. He's going to beat Casagrande's time. He's going to have to be satisfied with second, and overall he'll be down to third. 1 hour, 8 minutes to 24 seconds slower than Evgeni Berzin, his teammate. There's still a good race going there. And the arrival of Tony Rominger, and just look at the clock here. Tony Rominger has profited all the way. Those smaller wheels, the streamlined position has helped him to climb all the way to the line. And 1:38 the beating. This man is having Indurain margins in this year's Giro d'Italia. There's the result, the 4-stage win for Tony Rominger, 1:39 ahead of Berzin, 2:03 in front of Ugrumov. Casagrande again come good with 4th, but overall Casagrande nowhere to be seen. Rominger though is now 5:08 ahead of Berzin. Ugrumov though still has a chance, perhaps even today, on this 18th stage of 221 kilometres to make amends. The riders now going from Sudello to Satuario Vicoforte. It's a ride, as I say, of 221 kilometres. The riders now passing through their 3,000th kilometre of this year's Giro d'Italia. And a small group getting away, and the rain has returned just as it was in the opening few days of the race. This group 1:16 ahead. And they are Giuseppe Guerini on the far side and Denis Zanetta, a first-year professional, nearest the camera. Well, yesterday Tony Rominger celebrated his 100th win as a professional, and there's no chance now because they're almost a quarter of an hour behind. This was the remnant of a breakaway of some 18 riders that went clear in atrocious conditions after 96 kilometres covered, and they are surviving to fight out the finish. Now, Guerini is on the back of this group. He's been beaten already in the last 3 days, don't forget, into second place, and he's never won a stage of the Giro, while Zanetta is a first-year professional. He's never won a race here either, and now the sprint is on between the two of them, and the rain coming down as heavy as ever as they fight in the twilight, but it looks as though it's going to be a victory, or is it for Zanetta? Yes, he looks confident enough, and Guerini absolutely furious with himself. He can't believe he's second again. And a little bit of a lead here in the sprint for third place. It's Sergei Uchikov of the Polti team who is hanging on. This is the remnants of the breakaway away for much of the day. Now this, believe it or not, is the main field. Tony Rominger, you can just pick him out there. I don't know what he's doing wearing his sunglasses, because as you can see, the rain is absolutely torrential. And the main field today are pottering along. They are over 15 minutes behind as they come up to the finish. The clock is still counting, and as they cross the line, it is going to be 15 minutes and 25 seconds. There's the happy man of the day, 25 years old, Denis Zanetta, a new professional. He gets the win. And in the runner-up position was Guerini yet again, Uchikov third, and Vladimir Pulnikov fourth. Whatever happened to him in this year's Giro? And as we look now at the map of the stage which takes the riders into Briançon in France, 202 kilometres over the high spot of the race, the Col d'Agnello at 2,748 metres, there it is. The rumour is it's snowing heavily and the race could well be in danger of cancellation before reaching the summit of that climb. Conditions here now are quite atrocious, and it's always a risk the Tour of Italy takes being run in the month of June, because of course the snows very often are still here. And this is in fact the situation on the climb of the Col d'Agnello, and a number of vehicles buried in fact by an avalanche. And this is a look back at what has happened here, as the vehicles going up for television have become totally blocked and the chains no use at all. And the understanding is that a number of vehicles have been buried, but as far as we know, nobody has been killed, although people have been injured up there on the mountain. As a result, the race is going to be finished at the point of the Inter-Giro sprint, which is some 10 kilometres onto the climb of the Col d'Agnello, and that's where the stage will end. The riders have in fact only been told during the race, and in the breakaway now is Pascal Richard here at the head of affairs. Just behind him is the Refin rider Rodolfo Massi, and Nelson Rodriguez, the little Colombian climber, is in the action again. Well, there's a shock for him now because he's not going up to the 9,015 feet point of this climb. The race will finish halfway up it, but they're in the breakaway and they're in the last kilometre and nobody's going to catch them now. Well, conditions absolutely atrocious on the gateway to France, because that's what the mountain is, and they're not going to see the top of it, because after the race ends they will go round by autoroute and into the town of Briançon for tomorrow's stage. And this is Massi just checking over his shoulder to see if anybody is coming up. They've been riding for just around about 4 hours on the climb, and the other two riders are Richard and Rodriguez. Now, it's Bueno Hora, he's here somewhere. Oh, there he is. He's just popped straight through from nowhere. They knew he was coming, and Hernan Bueno Hora has simply flown by them, and they've gone for him now. And in fact, Rodriguez reaching for the gear levers there as he tries to get onto the wheel of Rodolfo Massi, and the rider gripping very, very quickly indeed. A man who always seems to ride well in bad conditions is Pascal Richard. And they've got onto Bueno Hora. Everybody else that matters is over a minute back, and you can go back a long way to the real men who matter in this year's Giro d'Italia. The clock just tripped over 4 hours in the saddle. The riders only being told about the finish change within the final hours. So you see, they haven't had much warning at all. These are the fortunate ones. And it was a great effort by Bueno Hora, but he's paying for it now as he drops away from the action. And now it looks as though Massey is opening up the sprint here. Pascal Richard in second place. Rodriguez so often in the hunt for the finish, but can't finish it off with a big sprint. He falls away now as Richard gets his second stage win of this year's Giro. A controversial one though it will be, not from the racing point of view, but indeed a little bit of organisational chaos. The avalanche has blocked the road, and the workers here trying to make sure that people aren't buried in the snow. And indeed, they're most concerned exactly about the whereabouts of one of the members of the organisation here, Franco Carbagnaghi, and his son, because they're believed to be under the avalanche. The road was clear, but the snow started to fall again, and as a result of that, an avalanche came, and between the lead cars going over, the advanced caravan, if you like, of the Giro d'Italia, and the main envelope of the race itself. So this has happened very, very late on, and as you can see, a lot of help quickly at hand. The men with the long, thin poles trying to strike the roof of Mr. Carbagnaghi's car, I would imagine. But as far as we know, he is in there somewhere. But I am able to say, as these are pictures taken earlier, that in fact Mr. Carbagnaghi and his son were rescued unhurt. So the snows are now behind us as the riders have gone around the mountain to Briançon for a 203 kilometres 20th stage to Gressenay-Saint-Jean. And now this is a long attack by Sergei Uchikov, the Ukrainian rider, and on the Polti team, and every year this young man does seem to improve tremendously. A small lead group here as they head up towards the finish at Gressenay. The riders today reaching 3,500 kilometres pedalled. They're not too far ahead, and the field down there nicely grouped together again. Nobody missing from the overall leaderboard. Tony Rominger still well in control as we now pass the 6 kilometres to go to the finish. Now, can Uchikov hang on to this lead? He's certainly not very far ahead of those who are chasing him. The main field is only about a minute behind, and we've got riders in between. There's the pink jersey. And behind him, Evgeni Berzin. This is the move up on the mountain. It looks as though Massimo Girotto has had enough. He's sagged off for there as they try to bring back the man who's setting the pace. And here he is, Sergei Uchikov from the Ukraine. And further down, less than a minute behind now, the yellow jersey here of the Once rider, Oliveira Rincon. Rincon is now 5th overall at the moment, but he's 10 minutes and 21 seconds behind Tony Rominger. He'll hope to improve on that because he could reach Claudio Chiappucci with a good effort. Chiappucci is one place ahead of him on the overall. That's Ugrumov trying to make ground again, because remember, Ugrumov now displaced by Evgeni Berzin in the overall race for the runner-up position. Berzin has countered the move on the right of our picture in that unfamiliar all-blue jersey because he is wearing the leader's colours there of the Intergiro sprint competition. But in fact, Tony Rominger set to make a clean sweep of all the competition in this year's Giro. And Massimo Girotto falls away even further now as Berzin goes through on the wheel of Oliveira Rincon, anxious not to allow his teammate Piotr Ugrumov any way at all of gaining time on him now. There's only a few seconds separating these two riders and the Gavis team overall. And Berzin knows he can't afford to lose even a handful of seconds. And Ugrumov wants some help from Rincon and tells him so, but Rincon doesn't seem able or indeed willing to go through. He's looked across at Berzin, and then he points at Berzin, he points at Rincon, and he's saying something like, look, they're not very far behind, and he's telling him again, but Rincon, well, I'm not sure whether Rincon speaks much Latvian, and so he's just sitting there looking at him. But how long is it since we've seen such an infight between two teammates in the major tour, and the leader, Tony Rominger, taking a back seat further down the mountain? Because now we've got Ugrumov attacking. These two starting the day separated by just 9 seconds in the overall classification. Berzin having a little bit of trouble here to hang on to Ugrumov. Rincon again following the wheels. Back to the chase behind, and the pink jersey himself, Rominger, is now doing the majority of the work. Rodriguez up into second place. Just behind him too there you can see the white jersey of Claudio Chiappucci. And so Ugrumov caught, has gone into the back seat. A little bit frustrated here, Piotr Ugrumov, because what he's saying is, I'm doing the attacking and you're just following, and that's exactly what Berzin is doing again. Well, there's going to be no love lost at all between these two when they get to the finish. Berzin is saying, I'm on second place overall. If you want to beat me, try and drop me. And so that is a tremendous battle, I have to say, between the Gay-Wiz riders, and Rominger is well out of it because he's done all of the racing he needs to do to win this year's Giro d'Italia. Now, this looks to me as though we've got Pascal Richard trying to bridge the gap up to the leaders. Three light leaders. Don't forget Uchikov is up here, and there he is. That's Pascal Richard with him. So they're ahead. We are now closing down. The clock is counting down the gap from the two leaders to these, the three chasers. And Ugrumov seems unable to get rid of Berzin. Now, what will Uchikov do with Pascal Richard, the winner of two stages, the latest coming yesterday at the foot of the Col d'Agnello? And in fact, the answer is he's going to go for a long one, and Sergei Uchikov has gone clear. Richard a little bit slow to react there. He got caught completely off guard, and I think Uchikov's done enough. In fact, the towel has gone in for Pascal Richard. The tactic paid brilliantly. He hit him at exactly the right moment, and had he not done that, almost certainly Richard would have taken his stage win number 3. 8 seconds have passed by, and into view comes Richard, followed by Ugrumov, Berzin and Rincon. And Cipollini brings the rest of the race, Tonkov, Rominger over the line. So, a first ever stage win for Sergei Uchikov from the Ukraine, and Polti will be very happy about that. And a great win for him, and one he's going to cherish. He took it so well, hitting Pascal Richard exactly the moment when he wasn't paying attention, and he should have been. But it will do nothing to the overall classification, of course. Tony Rominger, virtually a day off for him today, retains 4 minutes 50 seconds. There's the result of the stage, a 5-second win over Richard, 8 seconds over the battling threesome, and the rest coming in just after that. The penultimate stage of the Giro, 190 kilometres, Pont Saint-Martin to Luigno. And it's a ride with a very nasty sting in the tail today, and the weather is also atrocious. Overnight, by the way, the manager of Gay-Wiz has given a big talking to Evgeni Berzin and Piotr Ugrumov, still second and third in the race, for attacking one another, and perhaps today peace will reign. This is the main part of the race as they tackle the climb of the Passo Cuvignoni for the second and last time. It's a group which contains all of the favourites now, and still the attacks are coming. Evgeni Berzin is the man causing the problems, and the rain, as you can see, is back with us in determined fashion here in the Giro d'Italia, and Tony Rominger also now having to counter the move. It's the 25th birthday today of Evgeni, and he's on the attack once again. This little man seems insatiable this year, very proud of the fact he won the race last year, the first ever win by a Russian rider. So he still carries that blue jersey of the intermediate sprint leader in the Giro d'Italia, but of course Tony Rominger leads in that competition as well. He can only wear one jersey, and that's the pink, although I would think in the conditions today he would prefer to wear two. And this is the absolute cream of this year's Giro d'Italia. The leader, Rominger. You've got Berzin out in front, Ugrumov, Cipollini, Rincon, Tonkov, Zaina. All of those riders are here now. In fact, the only man missing is Claudio Cipollini in 4th place overall. And speak of the devil, and that's what he calls himself, here he comes. So Cipollini joins the leaders now. The top 7 riders in this year's Giro are now commanding the first 7 places on the road, despite these atrocious conditions. There is Evgeni Berzin. He's decided to desist and wait for the chase, and Rominger is right there as well. Setting the pace, Enrico Zaina and Claudio Cipollini. Cipollini's had a great tour, and 525 metres is the altitude here. And in fact, missing from this group is Evgeni Berzin. I think he slipped away, and here he is. So Berzin has gone once more. He waited till they got all around him, and then he went again, determined to have a happy birthday today for sure, despite the weather conditions. And Berzin is clear. So whether or not they've settled their differences, there's no doubt that the Gay-Wiz rider Evgeni Berzin is going to win the stage. So last year's champion of the Giro at least will get one stage win on the record books this year. So Berzin, and he's only a few seconds ahead of the race here, comes home in just over 5 hours. He gets the victory. He's going to make the most of that. And looking down the road there, that attack came as a big surprise, and it was worth it. And Cipollini has got away from the rest here. Cipollini's got away and takes second place, third place. Another one for Carrera. Zina gets it there from Tonkov and Ugrumov. But Ugrumov finishing only fifth and conceding 25 seconds today to Evgeni Berzin. And that certainly, with 1 day to go, will make sure last year's Tour winner will finish second now when the race goes to Milan. So the winner's podium at last for last year's winner. He paid many visits here last year. Every day he got a new race leader's pink jersey, but this time it stays very firmly on the shoulders of Tony Rominger. He leads Berzin by 4 minutes and 13 seconds. The stage result there, and a great result there. In fact, they gave Pavel Tonkov third place in the end, just pipping Zaina right on the line. And so to the final stage of this year's Giro d'Italia, 148 kilometres, the road into Milano. And there is the beautiful city itself, one of the prettiest cities in the world. And finally, the Giro d'Italia heading back home. And it's heading home with a Swiss winner, only the third Swiss victory in the history of this event. And Tony Rominger now, having held on to that race lead ever since the Day 2 time trial, can now expect a glorious arrival here in the city of Milan. A reminder of the overall situation after 94 hours of racing: Berzin, Ugrumov, Cipollini, Rincon. That was the order as they come now towards the end of the final stage of this year's race. A day surely for the sprinters once again. Remember that Giovanni Lombardi, disqualified once, is now trying to get himself back into a position to make amends this time out as they swing. Oh, and it was a very, very wide sweep indeed, and a lot of dirty looks being passed around the race bunch there at the time. But Manzoni and Martinello are back in the thick of this one now, and we've got Manzoni leading out now in the centre of our picture, but Lombardi is coming again. The two riders who clashed a few days ago are back at the front, and this time, no doubt about it, Giovanni Lombardi brings the Tour of Italy to a close with a very clean and definitive victory ahead of Mariano Manzoni and Silvio Martinelli in third place. But these were the three men of the 78th Giro, and two of them from Gay-Wiz who've battled out against each other almost as much as they did so against Tony Rominger.